Okay. Okay. Mustache and frame. That's doing a thing. That looks like that's working. Gonna go ahead. Let me pull up this other thing. Don't get political. Don't get political. What are we gonna call this? This isn't a creation stream that didn't happen because Arma sucks and hates me. It's about Cyberpunk. We'll call it Cyberpunk 2077 review. Mainly just ranting, maybe? We'll see. That's a terrible title, but we'll go with it. Okay. I am incredibly disappointed with Cyberpunk. 6 out of 10. Let's just get that out of the way, in case you need to go do something else. I'll take this opportunity. Okay, audio levels check out. I have no idea how long this is going to be. So I have coffee. It's early, and I'm high off of the Mandalorian season 2 season finale. And so it's making me reevaluate other things as far as other media that I've consumed recently. This being the major one, essentially. It's not really much else going on as far as games are concerned. I'm about to go back to work for the first time since COVID started. And so what happened? So what is the condition of the game? I streamed it a little bit. I love the soundtrack, and I really, really want to be able to listen to the music on my drive out to work. So as I was sleeping and just doing errands and whatnot, streamed my favorite parts of the game, which was the music. I've also been... But that being said, I played through the game. I've played through the game now. Let's actually... How many... I'm over 150 hours, 166 as of now. I have ran credits on the game twice. Ran through a few different endings with one character. And look at this. I wasn't even trying to make a point, and I just skid across the ground right there. Because... because this game is just broken. This game is broken. I've been playing 166 hours. I've had 3 or 4... You know what? Let's do it like this. I was actually just watching this right here. So these 10 minutes, let me point out which glitches I got from this montage. This guy right here, this person, is going to run. This is the only one that I've seen in this montage. It's going to run, and the game, whenever you're, at least with me, playing on mouse and keyboard, the animations bug out like this all the time. For me, it's actually the arms bug out like this, as well, as if my character is jumping. But exact same thing. I've never had this one happen. Motorcycles have actually been very stable for me, as far as almost too stable. They're oddly stable in the sense that no matter what happens, they will land like a cat. And it's that I've had happen to me on all sorts of environment features. You just saw it happen on that random
what the fuck is that bug?
Short wall.
What is that bug?
But any sloped surface happened all the time. I remember this mission. This happened to me. I'm playing on PC, the supposedly most stable version.
Guts, but that wouldn't get me what I'm owed. Oh, you want to try? Go on, son.
Had to reload on that last one.
Save me!
I don't even know what happened there. That's weird. I don't even know what to say about that one. That texture not loading right there happens all the time for me. I've not had anything like that happen to me. That looked like it was on a console just because of how bad the texture popping was. I don't know what that's about. I've not had that happen to me in 166 hours. That happens to me all the time. That I am riding around Night City with my dick out 30% of the time. Not even joking. I will run into that glitch all the time. Oof. I've never had this one. Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible.
Tem troquinho.
So the car is a vending machine. I've not had that one or this one. Is he sitting on his shoulders? The only way that would be better if they both had their dicks out. I've not had that one either, personally. Oh, that was all they wanted to do. They just wanted to show him. And then go about their day.
Please, accept my apologies for the confusion.
Was that was that the Delamain car? Eager. I've not had that one happen to me. I've been worried about that one, strangely, just because it does oddly. Motorcycles, especially, they'll come at you. They'll approach very quickly. Okay, if that person entered. Yeah, I don't think there's ever really an occasion where you can stand on one that's leaving. Maybe that one quest... I don't know. This is probably on you, Rufles. Whatever is about to happen. You're just asking for trouble. Yeah. I've taken damage before. I've not died yet in that sort of circumstance. I've seen that glitch several times, but I have just been like casually walking and run into a piece of the environment and taken an amount of damage that is noticeable. Trying to push the car off. Oh, that's neat. No splash. All the time. All the time. I've had that happen several times today. I've had my dick out on my motorcycle several times today. And I forget, I believe there was a patch earlier today, like 12 hours ago or something like that. So that's definitely still current. He's just dancing, having a good time. This fucking game, man. Now, oh my god. Okay. I've been worried about that in particular. I know exactly that area. I have that kind of pop-in issues a lot. I've not seen that happen before. Straight up things spawning inside of each other. There is a point to watching all these glitches, and I just want it to be known. I want this visual in order to make the point. Because this is a certain type of glitch. You don't see just in every game. Even with stuff like Skyrim in a Bethesda game. There are things that are similar to Bethesda games, which is definitely something to notice and definitely something to correlate. And we'll talk about why they're similar later. But I've not seen that one. That's a pretty fun one. Somebody call the cops! Is this a different glitch? What happened here? Is this a different glitch? So he's hanging out, somebody call the cops. Whiskey alien. Okay, yeah, no, different glitch. So, no idea how he got here, but I've not fallen from the top of the world yet. Like, seriously, what is this, 12 minutes? That's 12 minutes that the stream has been going. I was maybe in the actual game for less than 2 minutes, and I hit a bug. I hit that acceleration bug off of the terrain. I've not seen that one either. I've not seen that one. 166 hours of game time. I've ran the credits. I've done a lot of side quests. I am not just gloating. There's a point to that. I've not had these sorts of launching glitches that are pretty characteristic of this montage. I've not had them. Not a single instance of one, now that I really think about it. I do have character models like to lose collision on other models all the time, in the terrain, on these just barriers and fences and stuff, just on everything, cars especially. Usually whenever they have scenes throughout the city, like a back alley that has some cars, like a gang is hanging out and they're next to their cars, once you engage, they just mesh into their car. They'll just, like, their collision will get all fucked and they'll just walk right into their car and then they'll get stuck. Happens all the time. This is wild. This has to be on a console. I've not seen this. Okay. So that's the only one we're gonna watch as far as, like, montage. So, like, what happened? How do we get to this kind of game from something that was so hyped from already? Like, I accelerated off of the terrain again. I've had it happen to where it launched me into another section of the map, like a pretty ridiculous physics bug. How do we arrive at a game like this, where it's something so anticipated, with indisputably good talent behind it? There's good writers, there's good artistic design behind the team that's associated with CD Projekt Red. It's not like everybody just up and left, even though you can find confessions from former employees post Witcher 3 development stating that it was kind of development hell. You're hearing a lot of a talk about crunch nowadays in quote unquote gaming news, but so the writing was kind of on the wall at that point, where it's just, this isn't the CD Projekt Red that we gave them the credit for being. It was a little undeserved, it turns out. Now, it's not to say this is a categorically bad game. That's the thing. That's why I say 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. Just like I said, if you need to take away anything from this, just there it is. Take it what? Yeah, I don't know. I've never really enjoyed number scores, but I mean, considering trying to make content that sums up a point, it is kind of convenient for that purpose. I'll give the credit where it's due. And this game is that. It's a 6 out of 10. I'm going to just rant for as long as I feel like for about why it is and probably how it became this, but don't buy this game. Genuinely, don't buy this game yet. This is a game that needs 6 more months to iron out the bugs in this build of the game. And this build of the game is actually lacking at a lot of features that were presented in early promotional material. And honestly, this game should have been delayed several more years, to be completely honest, in order to fulfill the original vision of this game. The problem, it turns out, or at least it seems like, and I'm suspecting an Anthem-like backstory. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Anthem was a looter shooter that was a pile of garbage, mainly because of rushed development cycles, or rushed development goals that everybody on the ground knew they couldn't meet, but the CEOs and the investors, they all had different ideas as far as what the timeline for this game was. Not only that, it was a lot worse than the Anthem is still to this day the worst I've ever heard, just because of how long the production was. It was several years, but the actual time in development was not long at all. Not long at all. They spent years of time just trying to decide what to do with the game. What is it, Padre? Oh, really? Swipe a guitar? Thievery? Yeah, whatever, I could do that. So this is the gameplay loop. Right here. When I'm not doing the main quest, I'm just going to walk around, doing stuff, talking, drinking coffee. But this is generally the loop here. You walk around, you're given a contract based on, and you see, here's the crazy part to me. You know where the jobs are. So it's not really dynamic in any sense. You go to the marker. So like right here, undiscovered. Who knows what you might find? I can throw my main primary waypoint onto that marker, and when we get close, you'll see it'll trigger the event of, like you just saw with Padre calling us and offering us this mission. So, and you'll notice that there is no interaction there. I didn't get a chance to say, no. I'm not a thief. I don't do that kind of work, or anything roleplay associated, or anything like that. So, when you're not doing that, there are these other markers here associated with just other things. Now, what's the difference? Really? What's the difference from a player perspective here? I'm going to that mark to do side missions, main. The yellow line, your quote unquote primary waypoints are your main quest stuff, your side gigs, or your side missions, which are like favors and stuff that you're doing for other characters, and gigs, which are your actual, like Padre just gave us, like moneyed contracts, things that we're getting paid to do. You can make money off of these. This is just the NCPD, the local police, offering a bounty to basically come in and be like a private, like deputize you, and you get paid a little bit of money for cleaning out that area. Now, assault in progress. I'm just going to skip ahead. These are all the same things. These are all in all the ways that matter. These are basically all the same things on the map. Padre's quest that he just gave me is basically an assault in progress with different goals. And what I mean by that is it's just a place on the map that you go and you interact with as much as the developers have fleshed out that particular part. So that's really the only thing that separates these types of events. Is these are the events that have voice lines and these don't. Not terribly exciting. Now, this isn't a glitch. This isn't something associated with something that does not work in the game. This is a design decision. This is a design decision associated with timelines. Timelines that were given not by the developers, but by the owners of CD Projekt Red because of investor concerns. So, when you're backed into a corner like that, you have a lot of different things to think about. For anybody who's familiar with Arma 3 scenario creation, or really scenario creation anything, if you've ever opened up the StarCraft 2 editor and played around with that, there's some of what I'm talking about. The Skyrim modding. If you've modded, you probably know a lot more about what I'm about to say. A game engine has modules, in a sense. It's a central sort of game logic that you plug other bits of game logic, other modules of game logic onto. This is very rudimentary. I'm not a game developer, but this is essentially the boiled down version. And like I said, Arma 3 general scenario creation is where I'm referencing this from, so my terms might not be what a professional would use. But it is generally the same concept, just scaled up with more complexity, which only exacerbates the issues I'm going to talk about. And anybody who creates Arma 3 scenarios knows that even in that realm, there's plenty to just fuck with you and just make your life difficult. So the difference between what's egregious about the glitches and what is bad about this game? Let's sit here and think about this for a second. Sony takes this game off of the PlayStation Store. Pup, what's up with that? Pup, why would they be taken off of the PlayStation? Fallout 76 was a garbage fire. It was very meme worthy, but I don't really know how unplayable it was. That's the thing. I think that Fallout 76 was at least playable, from what I understand. Anthem, again, it was just an utterly shallow game. I'm pretty sure it was a game that worked, even though it had load screens every, several minutes and stuff like that at release. I hear it's a better game now. But what separates these games from Cyberpunk is Cyberpunk released on a platform that could not actually play the game. Older consoles literally cannot play this game. It is unplayable for a certain portion of the audience. Now, I mention I've been playing this game for 166 hours. I point out which glitches I have. I do that because I can't see every bug that this game is capable of producing from this engine. From all the different modules that they're using, I can't, as a player, as somebody who doesn't specifically know the inner workings of this game, and thus know what to pinpoint and what to go out and test. Like, I don't know the module for spawning AI pedestrians around the player within a certain radius, but I do know that it's around a certain radius, because you wouldn't just be populating the entire map at one time. You would be populating only realistically what the player would be seeing around him. So this is there's probably like you could actually kind of see it down this road. It's like a 300 meter maybe spawn distance for civilians. Cars are a little further off, just to give traffic the appearance of like stretching off into the sunset. But my point is, the thing that governs how that system acts is the module type thing that I'm talking about. Now, why am I pointing that out? I can't, because I'm not a tester, I'm not involved in the development of this game, I don't know all the different modules that are layered on this incredibly complex game. I mean, say what you will about this game, it's just like basically all modern video games. It is a bitch to make, and it requires dedicated teams of many people working many hours to get us this sort of product. So in the absence of that, I can't spend my 166 hours and see every single bug in the game on PC. But I've seen a lot of bugs.
You can't force a 6 on me. Sir.
Because I can't see all the bugs realistically. Like, really think about what it takes to test a game. I've played 166 hours. There are many bugs I didn't see. I've not gotten anywhere near 100% yet after that long. So, hundreds of hours. It would take me hundreds of hours to 100% play this game and identify all the causes of every single bug. Or it could take me and a team of people maybe a little less time. But that's the thing about video games, is that you have to put in the hours. There are so many things. There are so many things that could go wrong when you take a game engine and layer on all of these very complex modules on top of each other and then let them interact for a very long time. This is the origin of glitches as far as what happened, like what is it that launches me off the terrain? It's the game engine's physics system not being able to reconcile with the collision mesh of the thing on the terrain and my player model. You see it we saw it with many of the glitches, things clipping into each other, phasing through, breaking collision, that kind of thing. That's a problem with the engine. Okay, that's something wrong with one of those modules. Okay, that's where the majority of those kinds of glitches come from. Okay, that's where like your Skyrim glitches come in with a giant smacking you with a club and you getting launched into the air. That's the physics engine of the game, the interacting with different properties of the game, as far as like the collision of the weapon and the models, yada yada yada, like a bunch of game speak. The point is, I use those two as an example specifically because they're similar in a very specific way, where it's a breakdown within a specific and locatable part of the game. You can look at yourself rocketing through the air in Skyrim and be like, okay, there's something weird about specifically the physics with giants and players, or not even just giants and players, but just giants and other entities. In the physics engine, how it delivers damage to other models. There's just something about I don't know if it's the attack animation, something, but you can begin to ask questions as far as what's broken here. That's where Cyberpunk deviates into becoming unique. Because there are glitches on the consoles where, like the one with the guy getting on, like, let's go back to, let's just go, let's hold on. What's the magic? Yeah. Control-Shift-T, y'all. Very useful shortcut. It's one in particular, where he just explodes. I mean, he just gets into his car. They just get into their, or something like this. Okay, something like that, where it's just there's core scripting that is broken in this game. And if you are in a scenario where it's not even the modules layering on top of each other to produce anomalous things within your game, if those like I said, that's one type of glitch. That's understandable. That's what QA is for. You got to really put in the time to work those out, because you got to put in hours to see how that layering of systems kind of affects the overall game environment. But there's some of, like, that is broken. That is just broken. That is so phenomenally broken. Like, what is causing that? What is causing that? They weren't falling very quickly. They were up in the air, so there was simply a... It seems like there would be... Again, I'm not a game developer here, but it seems like there would be just a script that keeps track of if the player is in contact with the ground, and that helps dictate and govern the fall damage mechanic. And that person was not technically on the ground, so because they were not on the ground for such a long period of time, is it tracking seconds of hang time and then calculating fall damage off of that? It can't be doing that, because otherwise it would be doing that all the time. You see what I'm trying to get across is that this is a bug so wild that you can't release a game like that in good conscience. I consider that a very Skyrim-like bug. Same with that, really. Like, that's something that I would expect. This is just fucking absurd too, where it's just, this is on a console. It has to be, because the pop in here is incredible. Like, that's less than 20 meters. And then all the effects go off, and just like, I've seen this before when creating scenarios where it's scripting catching up to the player's location in the environment. Like, that's the issue. That's the thing that's making these layered systems go fucking haywire and producing all of these incredible glitches. It's something so fundamentally broken.
I'll have a look around.
It's just, it pops into existence. It spawned in the air. That is literally something I've had happen in Arma. That is, oh my god. Like, I can see the scripts and triggers firing off and going wacky in my head whenever I see something like that. Where it's just like, okay, player is this close, gotta, like, spawn the car, and then, you know, you have it in, like, before, in the build, you know, you have it set in a certain place, in a certain set of coordinates at the spawn location, and like in the very early build, maybe you had it too high and you didn't notice because of just the angle that you were looking at in the builder, or something, just no testing. But you see, this is the thing about this. There's always testing going on to some degree, just as they're rolling out features of the game. Like, it's an ongoing process, obviously. But the genuine quality control testing, they didn't have the time to do it, because this game was, like I said at the beginning, was rushed so obscenely that it can't actually be ready. Like, it doesn't matter how much you test it, you can't be ready to release it. Now, that's just to explain the glitches. It also kind of explains all the cut features, though. Because whenever you're in, I mean, put yourself in the shoes of that dev team. All right, your boss is getting it from above, basically, that investors are anxious about the game being ready in time for Christmas. So, during a fucking pandemic, I might remind you, like, people are not really doing the best, so to kind of expect that much from the player base, you know, like, to not really be thinking about all of the possibilities of, you know, remaining loyal to the cash-strapped people who are trying to, you know, to survive in this world. Like, it comes off as really brain dead, really. Like, very detached, you know. Whenever your boss, as a game dev working at CDPR, whenever your boss says, hey, you know that Mantis wall running thing? How's that coming along? All you can be is truthful, you know? Like, if it doesn't work, if you're kind of sitting here saying, you know, hey, it's a great feature, you know, we had it working in that one E3 demonstration, and it's great, but, I mean, could you imagine if you could wall run in this game as of now? Like with the current build, with how broken it is, could you imagine if fuck off, trash can? Could you imagine if get him to pop in again? If you could do that in this environment, you would disappear to the fucking void and you would just fall forever and it would just be one more bug, you know? As the game gets closer and closer to release, you have to start thinking about things like, okay, well, what are we going to do about the wall running issue with the Mantis Blades? What do we do about that? Well, I mean, we can't remove Mantis Blades. The Mantis Blades are working. We'll keep them, of course, but I mean, there are so many things wrong with this game. Wall running presents an incredible hazard for the player as far as dipping through the terrain and all that. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm just, speaking in theory in order to make a point. The point being, what do we do about it? We have all these other issues. We can't solve this issue here because of all these other issues. And we're about to release this game in 6 months. Well, fuck. Well, I mean, we'll try really hard. Can you delay the game? We'll delay the game once. We'll delay the game twice. We're not delaying the game anymore. And the Mantis things are still okay. Okay, so I guess we're gonna have to just take it out. I guess we'll just have to take it out. Now, that story that I just gave you, apply it to... where is it? I had a friend show me it the other day. Cyberpunk, missing features, Reddit. That's probably it. Promised, but 5 days ago, yeah, this is almost definitely it. Amazing AI that directs enemies during combat. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Just go through this list of promised features and apply what I just said to every single one of them, and that's why we don't have them. Is because the money of the game, the owners of this company, had expectations that did not align with the artistic vision of the developers who are actually making the product. The actual people who spent dozens, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours probably, definitely, like years. I mean, it's tragic to think how hard these developers worked only to have the greedy owners of that company throw it all away, all because they wanted to capitalize on the money-tapped customer base during the holiday season. That's astounding to me. That is astounding to me. Like, seriously, every single one of these features, I guarantee you, they can be traced back to not only a constriction on the timeline, but a completely delusional timeline from day one. That's what I'm betting. I'm betting a, like I mentioned already, an Anthem-like expose as far as why this game was in development for years, but feels like a game that had 3 years of development. Like, how long? I don't know, like 8 years of development, I think it was. Cyberpunk's been... Let's just Google it. How many years has Cyberpunk been in development? 9 years. Let's do some comparison, you know? Let's just for funsies. How many years was Skyrim in development? No shit. Before creating Skyrim, the company behind the game developed and released Was it really 3 years? Jesus Christ! Oh, wow, I thought it was closer to 9 than... It had 3 times the development time than Skyrim! The game we all memed about with glitchiness and whatnot. The famously, the lovably glitchy Skyrim, you know? And what did we get? We get a game that is more broken than Skyrim. Like, the glitches in this game are more game-breaking, objectively. Like, there are more scenarios that break games that I've seen than I ever experienced. I've saw a lot of, like, wacky bugs with Skyrim. Like, we've seen a couple of them in this game as well, and then montage as far as, like, stuff that isn't necessarily game-breaking, but, like, as far as, you know, the really, really bad stuff, there's just more of it in this game. And as far as which game, like, you know, comparing games is always kind of an iffy subject, but they're both RPGs, they're both similar open world RPGs, and think about the gameplay loops of both of them. I don't need to explore this fucking city. This is what is just... The more I think about this game... This is the whole reason why I'm even ranting in the first place. Is the more I think about this game, the more upset I become. Because... Especially now, like, oh my god, 3 years? Really? Really? How many years was Fallout 76 in development? 5 years, and that was still a hot turd, but it wasn't such a hot turd that it got pulled off of online stores. Anthem? How about Anthem? 7 years to produce that shitfire. 9 years, man. That's amazing. 9 years. So that tells me that just like Anthem was 7 years, I believe it was. But I believe the actual dev time, like making the final product, the thing that customers got their hands on, only had 2 or 3, if that, actual years of dev time. Because it was utter chaos. They didn't know what kind of game they were making for the whole 7 years. Basically, even to this day, I still don't think they know what the fuck they don't really know what the intentions are. You can't arrive at a game like this after 9 years of development time without a story exactly like that. Exactly like that. And think about Skyrim. Skyrim, you would walk around and you would explore. You would wander and you would run into quests. You would run into things on the environment. Everything can be found here. Everything. Like, there are secret things, like Easter eggy type things to find within the game world. But as far as, like, what the gameplay loop incentivizes, it does not incentivize exploration. I have no real need... Oh, excuse me. I have no real need to walk around the city. Just aimlessly walk around the city. I have no need to learn the layout, to memorize which thing goes where. Oh, we have a UI bug. Eurodollars stuck up on the screen. That's 2 glitches now in less than an hour of actual game time. But, oh my god. So, like, I'm not incentivized within the gameplay loop of this game in order to go and find those jobs, you know? It's all done from here. This is basically the fast travel version of what Skyrim did, where it's, you know, walk around and find quests to do. This isn't it. You can literally just fast travel, in air quotes. Not really fast travel, but it's basically like that same sort of convenience logic by just marking everything on the map already. It's there, and you just go to it. All the side missions, all the gigs. You get them based on your street cred and your level. So once you get them, you'll be contacted, and this is a game that has this is what kind of game you're playing when you play Cyberpunk 2077. You're playing a game that was in development for 9 years, that has a phone with contacts in it, that whenever you get a call, you cannot ignore calls for some reason. Very rarely do you have the option to reply, and actually have a conversation with the NPCs that are just throwing dialogue at you. But that's the oddity of having a role-playing game where you were forced to pick up your phone. Could you imagine that hellscape of living in this, which is the real world, by the way. This is America. This is the real world. So this should be very relatable. But in the future, social media, cultural degradation, with all the arguments and kind of shit you want to make about that, real touchy subject there. But all the sort of in this world, could you imagine if you were forced to pick up your phone every time it rang? If in the real world, I don't know where my phone is, it rang and you had to pick it up. That, just from a role-playing perspective, I can't role-play V, because the V that I would have to play in that scenario is experiencing such existential terror that they dread every phone call from every character, you know? I don't want to talk to people if I don't have to talk to people. That's the point of having a phone that you have buttons on. You may as well just put a speaker in my ear and just put an antenna out my head and give me a number and just fucking boot me like a robot, you know? That's the kind of world that I would be expecting to live in, and that kind of conceptualizing that sort of hey, what kind of world does this sound like, where you can't ignore your phone? What? That's the kind of decision, again, that only can exist in a game that has had 9 years of development time, but only a year or something where they were actually working with a version of the game that they knew they were going to make. You know what I mean? It's astounding to me. There is so much about this game, from NPC interactions. Why are there so many unattended children walking the streets of Night City? Also, is that really a thing? If you go to New York, there's another one. Are there just unattended children just walking from place to place? Is this universe so generous with its augmetics that it allows children to have a certain independence at a younger age than would be considered normal now? They're all chipped or something, so people just don't care if they wander out into the streets? Neat. Look at that. They're all the NPCs are just walking up to this police area and just noping the fuck out. Next-gen NPCs that have a schedule, you know? Oh my god. Skyrim, 3 years of development, they had NPCs. Granted, their cities were puny and pathetic. That's its own list of problems, where it's things like Winterhold or Whiterun would have be considered a capital region of a province, but only have like not even 30 people living there technically. Like it's a whole suspension of disbelief kind of thing with that. But there's also this. I also have to suspend my disbelief because this person is just not a person. Very obviously not a person. Like, you know, it's kind of stupid to say that just as somebody who doesn't have any investment in video games, but my immersion. Come back, cowboy hat man. Say something dynamic about this event. Oh, this event that nobody gives a fuck about aside from they're just like, what was that person's plan? Who knows? They don't care what they were doing. Now they're just going to wander this path, this lonely road, onward forever. Another unintended child. It's so odd. Like, I'm sure, like, they advertised it as having some sort of material for NPCs, you know, like a schedule for NPCs, at least something to give the illusion of that, more than just randomly populating in these. This is basically just a step above what is in a Madden game. Like, this is a 3D version of what sits up in the stands during a Madden game. The sprites in a Madden game. Nothing else. And those cops will sit there just forever. There's just, I don't even know why they're there. They're not doing anything. So why have them there? As set decoration? Well, it's not really good set decoration if it takes me out of the play, you know? That's not how decorating a set works. If I'm having a play and if I have a play that's set in World War II, I would not have what's a very modern, I would not have a Keurig sitting in the center of the stage, you know? You want to dress your set appropriately. So what does this do for the set? What does this do for the scene? What kind of scene is this? It's just police. Just looking at this guy. They're not saying anything. Just gesturing. Now you see, what this seems like to me, in a game that made sense, there would be a certain distance where, say something like right around here. Like, once the player character enters this trigger zone, that's roughly like 100-meter circle around this area, you would start hearing audio cues of the cop saying, like, "Sir! Sir! Blah, 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 blah! Sir!" Whatever, you know, and CDPD, and, you know, they would be interacting with the NPC. They would be having a cycle of dialogue that they run through as you get closer, kind of cueing the player into, oh, there's an event over here. And then you would either ignore it or go about your day, or whatever. And then you would have some sort of scheduled block of days. You don't need to have like a whole year of days, but just like a standard month, let's say, of 24-hour cycles to track. And then you have a random variable for each day where this trigger either is enabled and present or not. So, for instance, you would be, if you look at just a standard calendar of gameplay over a 30-day span in terms of game days, if a player were to walk by this street for once each day for 30 days, for a certain percentage of those days, this event would not be here. It would just not be here. That is to give the illusion that this is something that is dynamic happening. But it's not. Now, I assume that's the plan. Now, you see, I'm not like... I love CD Projekt Red, and I love The Witcher and everything they've done up until this point. And as I said in the offset, there is true talent at that company. But they had to cut corners, and that's what we're looking at right now. That's why I'm pointing it out. That's why, like I say, in a game that made sense, this would be more of an event than just two NPCs sitting here around another NPC in such a clumsy way that they actually interfere with the AI pathing in the way that it does. In such a obviously clumsy way. They would have accounted for that in a way that was immersive and made sense. They wouldn't just place these entities in the game world to purposefully destroy the pathing. Look at this guy. He's going to turn around because the pathing for the AI is destroyed, and they're just treating this like an obstacle. That's why I'm calling this clumsy, is there is no dynamic interaction. There is no dynamic response from the NPCs because they don't have that yet. I say that yet because I'm sure that was planned, but they don't have it. So they're just treating it like an obstacle because they have such basic pathfinding in AI. They're walking up to something that they perceive as a wall because I guarantee you there is a logic wall around this event right here. It is sectioned off. It is sectioned off completely because I bet in a version of the game, I guarantee you that there would be entities would walk up here, like the pedestrians would walk up to around here and trigger these NPCs, and they would start shooting at civilians and stuff. So they just like back away. They just created a wall and made it invisible, but the logic of the wall is all still there, even though it's imperceptible by the player. And when the logic of these pedestrians hit that wall, they just turn around as they would just a normal wall. Problem solved. Band-Aid. And that's a Band-Aid that you would put on something that you intended to go back on later and actually work around and refine, you know? It was never meant to be... this right here was, I promise you, never meant to be this way with, as the final product. Just, fuck, man. Is that actually blocking the traffic as well? That's literally blocking the traffic. That's what I'm talking about. That's... there was no time. They had no... This... And now that car is different? Now that car is different. Oh my god, this game. As Jim Sterling would call it, this is triple... What is it? Triple A capitalism? This is just greedy fucking owners of a company working their workers as if they're disposable, all for a product that they claim in its entirety, and they feel like they have every right to do whatever they want with it, despite what the people making the product would want for it. That's what's so fucking sad about this whole thing, and what gets me mad is that the devs, the people who gave us the Witcher series, all that talent and all that passion for storytelling and game developing was fucked over by a bunch of people who just wanted to cash in for the holidays to make what they could off of this product, because they're probably not, you know, they probably don't give a fuck about video games. They don't probably, in the same way that people would buy and sell art despite the fact that, you know, they're probably not the types to muse over art and, like, you know, really get pedantic about it and enjoy being pedantic about it and, you know, all that. Like, they just see it as a commodity. They see it as a marketable item. If you notice, I'm able to walk. That's because I had to mod in a fucking walk key into this game that is an RPG. I can't strafe and walk, unfortunately. It's an RPG without a walk key. Because why would you have a walk key? You know, like we already touched on, there's really no gameplay incentive to freely explore the environment. There's incentive to go to specific marked locations, solve the problem, you know, whatever problem is there at those locations, and then just look around those areas. You know, you'll usually find crates and hidden stuff there. You know, that's, as far as exploration goes, that's basically the only gameplay incentive there is. Outside of that, there is no reason for me to just wander, like what I'm doing right here. Even though I love doing that in games. I love turning the HUD off and just walking. And just experiencing the street life. The street life of this city that doesn't exist. Look at this naked person's... I guess they were naked. I guess they're supposed to look... I looked like they had clothes on them that disappeared, but I guess she's supposed to look like that? I don't actually know. She had some dope cyberware, so... It looked pretty intentional. Unattended child. That weirds me out so much. Like, I'm worried for all these kids that I keep seeing, where I'm just like... Okay, why is nobody, like, making you a sandwich and cutting off the crust? You know, like, why are you just wandering on the streets? Are you looking for somebody to cut the crust off your sandwich? Is that what's going on? It's another one of those things where it just feels lazy. Also, you'll never see an NPC on a motorcycle, even though motorcycles are in the game. Who the fuck knows why? I know why, because this game was pushed out of development way too soon. It's the same reason that children are randomly wandering the street. It's the same reason that NPCs are, in general, are just wandering the street with nothing really to do. It's because they can't do anything else. Like, there's no scenario where they could be doing anything else because this game was not ready. And there's so much of this game that feels like... For instance, let's see. Like, the cyberware stuff and the leveling up kind of feels like the mutagens and the leveling up from The Witcher. But the character, specifically, the way the character interacts with the environment, it feels like a lot of the dev team just kind of defaulted to, what are we doing? Oh no, we don't, like, the higher-ups are kind of wanting us to push this game out. We don't know what we can feasibly make in the incredibly unrealistic timeline that we've been given by the suits at CD Projekt Red. So what can we do? Like, that's the fact that was the driving motivation behind all these design features. It shows. It absolutely shows. That's why it feels the way it does. It's because there was a horrendous profit motive where, unfortunately, the workers, the people who were actually using their labor, who were spending hours of their life grieving over the stressful work of getting this fucking game ready for everybody, the thing that they were stressing over was completely out of their hands as to the ultimate success or failure of it. It breaks my heart that they had no right to say what happened with the products of their labor. Especially over something that took 9 years! Puppy dog, that took 9 years to make! I'm sorry, I'm not yelling at you. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just... It's amazing, isn't it? It took 9 years to make this. Could you imagine? Let's just imagine this, okay? You were paid You're a carver. You're a mason. Okay, let's pretend you're a mason, and you're paid hourly wage to be a part of a team of masons that goes out every single day, and you're working on this enormous monument, just the biggest monument in the land that anybody's ever seen. You want it to be impressive. You want it to make everybody go ooh ah and forget their worries for a little bit, or whatever the fuck a monument's for, and commemorate some person who killed a bunch of people or something. And you get the monument, you get the team together, and you all agree on what the monument should be. That's the first hurdle. You all spend many sleepless nights because this is a big project. There's a lot of people involved. You may have been involved in smaller statue creation projects where, you know, you're like making some stuff for somebody's garden with you and your buds, but you're part of a team that is you're part of a global team. Probably there's no way that everything that they did with this game was all in-house, but you're part of a global team that has to outsource for certain things, that has a product that is hotly anticipated. Everybody want this statue. Everybody want to look at this statue. Everybody. Every last person. So you're waking up every single day knowing this. You're waking up and by the way, this is not the first project that you've done with this team of statue makers, of masons. Some masons have come and gone, but largely, like, the mason group that you've been a part of is the same. You've done a whole trilogy of statues, we'll say. But this is the biggest statue. This is the biggest statue. This is the most dedicated amount of time you've ever put to your part of the statue. Even if you're one of those people who just spent 9 years trying to think about the best way to carve the toe of this statue. Even if you're not one of the people, one of the core constituents of, like, the inner circle of producers that are figuring out the art direction of the statue, what pose the statue's in, how the dimensions, specifically all this, you know. If you spend 9 years of time on a project, for this example, building a statue, for the very obvious reality game development, any statue, anything, any project, 9 years to be met with a rushed final deadline and a complete disregard by upper management for the very obvious reception that you would take. I mean, they knew that this was going to happen. There's no way that you can logically deduce something other than what is happening is going to happen. Some version of what is happening right now to Cyberpunk, like all of Poland shitting their pants, some version of that would be happening if you were to release the game in the state that they did. Certain ways they could have managed it better, where, you know, I probably just being straightforward with it would have helped out a lot. The lying to people, hiding reviews and all that definitely colored people's opinions. But if you spend 9 years being a part of a multicultural, global team of hundreds that builds a statue that everybody then sees, and before it's ready, the management says, now we'll just call it finished, and we'll just tell everybody it's finished, and just claim it's finished, and start demanding payment for it. And once you release it to the public, it just crumbles. It just crumbles completely. once people actually get their hands on it and the blanket comes off and everybody's looking at it for a little bit, and it's nothing like what people were hoping. It's missing the nose is just not there. It's at an awkward position that really wasn't ran by the appropriate people, so the people who were in charge of doing the pose just kind of did what they could with what they had. The person who was in charge with the toe was using their toe as a basis instead of, the toe that was agreed by the art director. This is getting out of hand as far as a metaphor is concerned, but you get my point. It's such a clusterfuck as far as where it all went wrong and who deserves our sympathy and who deserves our ire. Because at the end of the day, the person who was laboring to make this really deserved more right as far as what happened to the product of their labor. That's kind of my point. You can't watch. I mean, seriously, it's so funny to me. Really, V? Is it not good? It's so funny to me to be a fan of video games as long as I have, and be as interested in like the development cycle of video games. Like I grew up being subscribed to like GamePro and PC Gamer, and like I was just a total dork for all of that stuff. I loved just the video game culture, Nothing has radicalized me. I said I wasn't going to get political, but nothing has radicalized my opinions as far as what the association between capitalism and innovation is more than video games. Because this is... I mean, if you're honest with yourself... I mean, I know y'all just saw that. I know y'all just saw that door be not there and us seeing into the game world for a hot second there. I know y'all saw that. This is the product of people not having control of the thing that they are spending hours out of their finite life creating. There are people who spent 9 years, basically a decade. People's average lifespan is like 8 of those. And there are some people who turned in one of them in order to produce this. And they had no say over what the company was going to do with the product of their labor. They had no say if they were going to delay, which you're starting to see it now. You're starting to see there were, oh my god, what was the exact quote? Cyberpunk dev grills CEO. I'm gonna say will give me something. Cyberpunk corporate hypocrisy quote. It was something. Yeah. Hostile staff. Yeah, this is what I was reading earlier. Developers ask blunt questions about the company's reputation. The game's unrealistic deadlines are relentless over time in the months, years, and years. The game's unrealistic deadlines and the relentless overtime in the months and years. Years, man. Think about that. Think about having such a shit job for years, but you stay with it because you believe in the project. I know I'm kind of like almost romanticizing a lot of these devs and by assuming that, but I mean, you can kind of see it with a lot of the on the ground devs who are actually making the game. They were excited to make this game. One of the biggest games of the year. Finish Staff endured multiple periods of extensive overtime, including mandatory 6-day weeks to finish the game. Bloomberg is, 6-day weeks. I hear that, and I totally sympathize, just because I am all about workers' rights, and if they consider a 6-day week extensive overtime, then that is their right to think that. That's why I believe that there should be some form of union able to dictate that as a matter worth actually managing, rather than having these tyrants of CEOs capable of pushing out a game that takes multi-million dollars, multiple hundreds of people to make, and yet something with that many things on the line, that many irons in this one fire, it should not be able to be put out with one single person walking up and just just dousing it with their stupid fucking input about deadlines and whatnot. Oh my god, I say 6-day weeks. I'm about to go. Another thing that radicalizes a person is working 12-hour days every single day without days off. That's what I do out in the oil field. That's what sucks about my job. That's what sucks about the oil field in general. Now that I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but it's kind of the same. I work 7 days a week. Whenever I go out there, I'm about to go log a well in Jal, New Mexico, where I've been told the prognosis was it's going to be a disposal well, and it's going to be 50 days is what the projected total days of drilling will be. That is me working a 12-hour shift every single day for 50 days until the project's done. Now, the project is liable to go longer than that. I'm going to be out there until they case that hole, and actually, I haven't read the prognosis. They're probably going to case. No, yeah, they're going to run like 11 strings of casing. Getting off topic. Point is, I consider that a lot. The oil field is nowhere close to being unionized. There are no workers' rights at all. They're incredibly exploitative in the oil field. Migrant labor, migrant workers. The most dangerous road in America is in Jal, New Mexico. Or not specifically Jal, New Mexico, but in New Mexico. It's a stretch of road used by oil field workers. Dozens of people die every few months, I think it is, actually. I'm not going to look it up. I'm getting way off topic here. This coffee's getting to me. I said this is going to be ranty, and it definitely is. Point is, fucking workers' rights is not just about people stealing money from the owners of a company. That's what people think when they hear unions, or people talk about labor rights or that kind of thing. Labor rights in the medium of art, something like this, because this is art. I consider video games art. It affects it in a way that is very specific to video games, where everybody has a different opinion on what the game is. Some people within the development team consider it a game. Some people in the development team, mainly the people higher up and the owners of the said development, or the said company, consider it a commodity, consider it a product to sell. So those two viewpoints contradict in a lot of ways along the dev cycle of this game. So to an investor, just because we've now, I don't even know where I'm wandering at this point, but just let's go look at this AI pathing again to this totally useless AI event. I'm not even going to call it AI event. Just these placeholder models that are just sitting in the middle of the road that is obstructing now 3 different AI routes of pathfinding. An investor doesn't give a shit about this. An investor higher up whose only interest in the project is the money that it's costing and the potential money that it can make, They don't give two fucks about the pathfinding of these AI and this line of traffic in this part of the city. They don't give two shits because it's not something that's important to them. They're never going to play this game. That's what you have to realize before you start trying to figure out who's going to be angry, or who to be angry at, I should say. Yeah. They are never going to play this game, so they don't care. Like, that's the logic. That's the driving force behind some person who's able to be so invested in a company like this and yet want to push a defective product out the door. They will never have to deal with the repercussions of that defective product because their incentive is not the same incentive as the dev team. The dev team's incentive is to make a good game, mostly. You would hope. In a world that made sense, that's how that works. But not so in this situation. This situation, by the way, my God, the hypocrisy of just like that was the thing that I completely skipped over. What was the quote? Another developer asked whether CD Projekt directors felt it was hypocritical to make a game about corporate exploitation while expecting that their employees work overtime. The response was vague and non-committal, as corporate types do. Like, I mean, seriously, this game is unintentional poetry about what corporate influence does to art and just general products, innovation of products in general. I think that you can easily make that argument. In the video game industry, there are many examples of it. This is the most egregious one by far, and that's probably the thing that incentivized Sony to act the way that it did, is because if you are Sony and you have, I mean, you if you watch Jim Sterling, it's already something that's in the zeitgeist of the games industry. People know that AAA games are a joke. They know it in the same way that, like, they know that lawyers are out to fuck them, that car salesmen are out to fuck them, you know? Like, there are certain just things in the culture that we all just kind of accept, you know, just that we've been taught through the culture that we just know. We just know it because it's been repeated. It's almost like a stereotype in a way, where it's like a stereotype built on actual data, where it's like, you know, why would a car salesman want to fuck you? Because they make money that way. That makes sense, you know, that there's a realistic and purposeful reason for them to do it. Just like there's a realistic reason for them to push this game out the way that it is. Like, this game makes sense when you think of it like that. When you think of it like a product whose main purpose was to... Look at that. Whose main purpose was to trick people into buying it. Makes total sense. From that perspective, from a CEO perspective. From a decision maker's perspective. But that's the thing, there are hundreds of employees that created this product. So, like, the person who created this character model had absolutely no say as to what the release deadline was going to be for this game. Isn't that right, bro? And yet, the person who made this model put potentially dozens of hours into crafting it and other likewise very, you know, it's an invested process to make it. So, like, they had to do that several times over. Graphic designers of all types, from all over the place. I'm sure there are things like rendering physics and light and all that kind of stuff that they may have needed third-party assistance with outside of the engine, outside of the actual company. It's mind-boggling how many people have been involved in this project. And yet, on the other side of that, it's amazing how many people it took to completely fuck it over. Who's that? Igor Brook. Hi, I would like to ask, could make videos with other stations like Pacific Dreams. It would be awesome. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely gonna do that. I'm just kind of taking a minute. I'm actually gonna, whenever I get off here, I'm gonna go do some errands, and I'll probably do that. I'll leave it going. I'll leave it streaming, and just to have it, because I'm personally about to go leave and go to work in the oil field, and I need this music. That's the only truly objectively good part about this game is the music, and I need that music on my channel readily accessible, because I'm about to be driving for like, oh god, like 10 hours out west in order to get out to work. But what Igor, since you're like literally the only one here, what do you want the next station to be specifically? I already have the ones I want. I was in it for Night FM, but what could make videos with other stations like Pacific Dreams, Radio, Pebcac, and Body Heat. Of those three, which one do you want first? Because I'm only gonna do one. I'll get around to doing all of them at some point, just because I love all of the music. But as far as like, I have what I want for my trip, so you know, what do you want to see next? I can't, like, it's just little things. Like I can hold Alt. God bless modders. You see, this is another point in favor of the whole idea of profit motives not necessarily being drivers of innovation. A modder made my game better for free. No profit incentive to do so at all. Why would they do that if there was no incentive to do so? Why would somebody take their time to like, that's labor. That is literally what game developers do. They go out, figure out the code of the game, manipulate it in specific ways, yada yada. Like, I think that's a very reasonable comparison to make. And yet, I'm able to walk in this game that did not have a walk key because of modders. Because of somebody who was making something for free with no expectation of profit. And that objectively led to something being, a product being better. Like, I'm not trying to say that one, like, you know, boo capitalism bad because it ruins video games. I'm just saying it's way more complicated as far as the driving forces of innovation. And video games are a very good example of that. Very good example. Honestly, Igor, I'll probably do Pacific Dreams if you don't say anything, because that was a pretty chill station. Speaking of, actually, this is my hacker character. I don't have a car that I can call in. Instead of just walking, let's just kind of drive around for a sec, see if some stuff breaks. Yeah, Igor, if you don't say anything, it'll be Pacific Dreams being streamed next for sure. Could use some chill beats at work. I was thinking maybe that what's that? There's Pacific Dreams and there's that one other, what was the Ritual FM is the other one that I wanted to get before I left for work. So no throttle control as well. As well as not having the ability to walk in a game where there's just like the city is oozing aesthetics of all kinds. So much time was put into making this city, yet not only does the gameplay loop itself not incentivize you to explore it freely, like with your eyeballs, not just like, you know, your HUD elements. Because I mean, it's really easy to place a pin and then just follow the map waypoint without really paying attention to the stuff around you as you're driving through town. Just to bring up Skyrim again, if you're wandering through the forest in Skyrim, you kind of have to use visual cues in order to dictate what you find interesting. Audio cues sometimes too. It would be great. First Station Pacific Dreams. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm not an if. Oh, don't worry about it, Igor. I mean, as far as writing, your English is good, so no worries. But yeah, like the Pacific Dreams, gotcha. But yeah, in Skyrim, there were more creative ways of engaging the player and kind of bringing them out of that exploration gameplay loop in order to go do the other parts of the game, where the actual questing parts, and that made the exploration part of the game. In this game, there is no exploration, just flat out. There is no real mechanic to genuinely drive the player to explore in a way that is actually exploring. You're just going from point A to B to C to D. Like, that's not exploring. That's just hitting waypoints. You know what I mean? It's not exploration. That's why Skyrim genuinely felt like a game where it rewarded you for exploring, is because its mechanics, the way that the game interacted with the player was genuinely a way of mimicking exploration in a world. And they just don't do that here. Watch this. Watch this shit up here. You see that traffic up there is disappearing as I'm getting closer? Because there's this void zone. That's, again, the scripting breaking, because there, like, that zone of that dynamic zone around the player that I mentioned earlier with the NPCs, it applies to the traffic. And you can tell by the two modes of traffic that we're seeing as we're driving through the road. There's we'll call it real traffic, where, you have these cars that you can actually, like, bump into and stuff. And then there's the background traffic, where there's the far away cars that are super low polygon, and there's like a bunch of them. But we just saw them disappear as we were getting closer, because the actual script will probably see it again up here. Like they're like 300 yards up there. Because the actual script that is used to determine these dynamic zones is broken fundamentally. Now you see, I'm all over the place as far as like what my point is, but I brought up the type of glitch being important earlier on in stream, and that kind of glitch, that traffic disappearing, that's indicative of the other kind of glitch, the worse kind of glitch, where it is not so much an anomalous event that is a product of all of these complicated systems being layered on top of each other and producing things that the developers didn't expect. That is a product of the core, the system itself, not anything else. Not anything else interacting with it, but the actual system, the traffic, the system that governs the spawning of traffic dynamically around the player is fundamentally broken. Fundamentally. Like, that is not hyperbole. That is a kind of glitch that you do not see in games that release. That is an early access type glitch. That is an early access type glitch. That is the kind of glitch that you see in a game. The fact that that is a glitch that you see, this is actually where I'm going to hang out whenever I go dark to stream the music. I was looking for this area earlier for one of the other videos because I love those fish. Those beautiful fish. But yeah, anyway, that's the kind of glitch that you see in a game that is fundamentally broken. That's why I brought up the skipping off of terrain at like Mach 5, like that glitch. Again, that's technically some systems, interacting with each other and going apeshit, but at its core, that is the physics of the game being broken. It doesn't really matter that it's another part of the game. being the, like the mesh and model of other objects interacting with it and like collision with other objects. It doesn't really matter. The thing that's bugging out in that instance is the physics of the game, because the physics are broken, because this game was not ready. Like, I cannot stress that enough. A game that has had 9 years of development but has a dynamic traffic system that despawns within clear sightline of the player, like it's doing currently in front of us. You could see it very far down the road, but you could clearly see it. Like, there's just... That is early access. You just saw that texture pop on the road because of the way that the headlights interact with the lighting. That's just a graphical glitch. Everybody has that. That's to do with the way that the game dynamically renders textures. Just because this game has a texture scaling system, there are actually several options to change it from dynamic to static. But you can tell, because of the severity of the pop-ins, that even if you have all of those scaling options turned off, it still does it. It still does it for you in this build, because I guarantee you, if it did not do it to some capacity, which you're seeing it all over if you know where to look. Like, you could see the textures and the pop-ins from all these different objects as I'm driving. Like, just right there, the yellow lines just popped in. Like, it's kind of subtle just because there is a lot of detail in the game. But again, that's just another example of a single core system, the system governing the dynamic rendering of textures, broken. Fundamentally broken. Like, it's just not ready. It's not ready. And it's just so... It's so sad, man. It's so sad. It's so, like... Igor, are you sad about Cyberpunk? Because I am so fucking sad about Cyberpunk. I was not... Thankfully, I had avoided hype for the majority of those 9 years. But I was at least some amount of excited since I had learned of the project, and especially in the last 2 months running up to the release. Man, I was hyped as fuck. I could not wait to get my hands on this game. But just learning and really, let's put our empathy pants on here for a second. Let's step in the shoes of one of those devs again. I feel so bad for them right now. I feel so bad that they would put so much work, almost 10 years of their life into this. And there's a lot that's good here. There's a lot that's good. And there was a vision to this game that you can tell it was something special. At least it was special in the minds of a lot of people while they were making it. But just... somewhere along the lines, the devs, not the devs. That's you need to be specific. Who? Let's do it. Let's do it real. Let's do our outrage real justice here. Who are the CEOs of CD Projekt Red? Let's see if they know what that is. The board of CD Projekt Red is made up of the following people. Operates in accordance with the Polish corporate law. The company, blah blah blah. Adam, Polish last name, president and joint CEO. You, sir, are a dick. Marcin, Polish last name. Marcin, co-founder, joint CEO. You are also a dick. Peter? Poiter? I don't know Polish names. Another Adam. Another Poiter. Peter. Piter. Mikhail. All of you, man. All of you. this is why you need unions right here. Let's see, I mean, how many people would the board of CD Projekt Red, these are the people, the board, operates in accordance, include representatives of the company. The prerogatives of the board include representing the company in all matters not reserved by national law or the company articles of association to the supervisory board or the general meeting of shareholders. So, like, there are other things that they really don't have the prerogative to include themselves in the decision-making process of, probably things related to funding and stuff. Igor, I know the game has so many problems, but do you like the ambience of the city? It reminds me of Altered Carbon. I keep hearing about Altered Carbon, but I've not actually watched it. It reminds me of a lot of Akira. I had recently rewatched Akira, and just because I knew like the cyberpunk aesthetic was pretty important to Akira. But yeah, man, like that's why I added in that's why I had to add in a walk key, is because I genuinely do love the ambience of the city and the aesthetic of the city and just walking around in it. Like it's a very specific type of role play where you don't expect any interaction with the NPCs, and like you kind of rationalize it in your own mind, where you're like, okay, I'm fine with the NPCs just being glorified dolls, basically, but still being able to enjoy walking around in that environment. Like, the fact that they were able to even pull that off for me is impressive. That just speaks to the quality of the design of the city on its own. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. While I was actually live streaming the radio stations, like there would be moments where I would get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I forget which one I was recording or streaming while I was sleeping that one night. But I would just look over at my screen at the actual like scene that I had framed to look at while the music was going for the stream. And I just got caught up because it was so detailed, and I was just looking at all the little bits and just loving every single thing that stuck out. But I mean, for all the praise that deserves, and that's another thing where it's like that's another one of those tragedies, really, because the city is glorious in its own way and it's brilliant in its own way, but it was hamstrung by these motherfuckers. These motherfuckers right here. Like, the fact that... How many people is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people. How many employees work at CD Projekt Red? 800 people work at CD Projekt Red. 800 people work at CD Projekt Red, not even counting the people who they had to outsource to, like voice actors and experts in other proprietary software, like potentially physics rendering, light rendering, whatever special shit they had to get for their game in like out of house for their rather than the stuff that they did in-house. Yeah, I guess that's the right way of saying that. But you know what I mean. But, like, the fact that 800 people had been working for 10 years on a project that these 6 people fucked up, astounding. It's astounding to me that we live in a place where like the duh way of doing business is that. Like, there's like the duh way of doing business is that, yeah, that makes sense. Let's let those people control what happens to the product of our 10 years of labor. Oh my god, man. Could you imagine? Like, the statue thing was kind of a weird, kind of difficult example to wrap your head around, I think. Even though I still think it got the point across. But like, think of it like being a painter trying to, not very low. Think of it like being a painter trying to collaborate with other painters to make an enormous mural. And the plan is that it's going to take several years, but you don't know how long because you don't know exactly what you're going to be painting yet. That's something that you're all going to collaborate to figure out. But fast forward, and after like 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears in order to like argue about what to make, who makes what for the mural, what days you're going to show up, and you know, what do we outsource for what, and all that, and then like just randomly, the entire time you're trying to manage this mural creation, this painting, the entire time you have 6 people just counting their money that they don't have yet, telling you, yeah, you'll be ready next month, right? Oh, no, we won't be ready next month because we still gotta, like, you know, do this part of the mural and that part of the mural. Oh no, but Christmas is coming up, so you need to get it ready. We're gonna release it. But you can't release it yet because it's not done being painted. If we release it right now, they will literally not know what we are trying to paint because it's not done yet. It's like that. It is at that level of what is it? Not absurdity. Of caricature. I forget what the word I'm looking for is. Parody. That's the one. You can't, like, it's beyond parody as far as like what a CEO could feasibly do in order to step in to fuck up a production. Like, they just needed to stay away from it. That's what's so ironic about the whole thing. Like, yeah, they wanted money. And that's well within their rights. Of course they wanted money. They've been told that they have rights to make money because they are owners of this company. And they're like job creators and on and on and on and all that. So therefore they have some immutable right to the labor of all of their employees. Okay, you know, it's understandable for them to have that expectation because of the world that we live in. If they were smart, they would recognize that they were fucking themselves by doing what they did. But they didn't. Like, they're not even smart about it. They're not even smart about their greed. Like, if they had been properly greedy in a way that made sense, they would let the devs who know what they're doing make the thing that they want to make and then release it and then make money off of it. People didn't buy The Witcher 3 in record numbers because of advertising or, I mean, pick a fucking random thing. Ultimately, it was a good game. It is ultimately the thing. What is that? I know the game has had thanks for the answering. It is really interesting to listen to your opinion because you notice details of the game. For me in particular, like, I've been playing for 166 hours so far. That's what I have logged, and it took me that long to actually get to the point where I felt like ranting out loud about this game, because I started to notice those little details, and I started just like, it was one of those things where things kept building up slowly and steadily, and I just couldn't ignore it anymore. Where I've brought up Skyrim several times now. You look at Skyrim, where you're playing Skyrim for like 500 hours. I have like some ungodly number of hours on Skyrim. That's not actually that bad at all. Okay, on the original I have a little over 1,000. Special edition, but I also had a non-Steam copy that I used before that I racked up around the same amount of time. But in those thousands of hours, those hundreds of hours of playing Skyrim, whenever I would see a bug, it would almost never be a bug that was truly like game breaking. Like, it would be something like I will always bring up the giant smashing a player, launching them into the stratosphere. Like, that is a bug that every time I see it, like, that's the type of bug that people refer to when they say, like, that game has bugs, but it has charm, you know? What they're really saying is that it has bugs, but there are other things that I like about it, and those bugs don't ruin the game. Like, that is the subtitle of what they're saying. It was the same thing with Skyrim. Very early Skyrim, that's a whole other thing. There were a lot of game-breaking bugs, and that's a whole... I'm not here to talk about that. But in this game, whenever you walk everywhere, and you notice all of these little things, and they just compound and compound and compound, it's not the same. It's not the same as walking around and experiencing a Bethesda glitch or something. It's much more akin to noticing the shortcomings of an early access game. The texture popping is ridiculous. The hacking, like, this is me hacking, you know. This is my hacker character, and that was the loop there, the loop of gameplay there. You know, I come around the corner, I see some guys, I do some hacks, some mad hacksaw skills, and you know, it's not really any more involved than that. Like, there's speaking about hacking the hacking mechanic specifically now. What you just saw was essentially what happens every single time. You can access cameras in a very Watch Dogs-esque type way, where you can hack things that you can see through the cameras, you can hack turrets, and you can overload both of those things, but that's generally it. That's basically all that you can actually do with the hacking mechanic, aside from all the quick hacks, which functionally are just abilities, no different than spells with a cooldown, essentially. You have a hotbar dictated by your cyber deck, which is just another item that you can pick up, another piece of gear, and this is a legendary one, higher level one, and it has a base RAM size, and it has certain slots that you can actually... Basically, this is what determines the size of your hotbar, if you're familiar with other RPGs. Your ability hotbar is dictated by the level of... So it's not just you have to get a certain skill. You actually have to get this particular item, and that'll make your hacking more efficient. But only in the sense that it mitigates certain things like your RAM cost, which is your mana cost, basically, and ability cooldowns, crit chance for abilities, etc. So there is that's it. That's all it is. There's no major distinction between, like, brands, for instance. That's one way that I can think of to make those things slightly different. Kind of what Borderlands did, where it's like, Borderlands is really the best example of just creating loot, dynamic loot, in an environment that is cartoonishly corporate. Just having that variability to the items went so far. But I mean, like, at the end of the day, they're all guns, and they all shoot people to some extent. So, you know, like, you could pick up any one of them and get the job done, but that's not really the point. The point is having the choice. The point is having the ability to have a favorite. So why can't I buy a brand of cyber deck that has more RAM than this other brand, more base RAM than this other brand, but less crit chance or something like that. You know what I mean? Like just that simple. It's a simple tweak, a simple variable tweak, but it would actually go pretty far. And you just create things like that in order to pad out the item list, because as it sits now, the item list is pretty fucking sparse. There's really no point. Like, I'm just throwing on whatever gear I can with this character. Like, whatever I find that's actually better, that's what I wear. That's what dictates what I wear. That simple. I mean, look at that. If there's one thing this game does well, it's, I mean, soundtrack for sure. The sound, music, all that's good. Specifically the music. There's a lot about the sound design that's also pretty good, but the environmental sound design is a little janky. But, I mean, you can't not look at a vista like that and at least be blown away by the visual qualities of the game. Like, that's just fucking cool. And it's a real shame that once that wears off for that moment and you go back to walking, you go back to, you know, playing just this game. I would really... Okay, let's just real quick, let's go over this too. Can I glitch it? No, I can't. But another cool, awesome thing I noticed. See that? See that? Do you notice it? Do you notice it? No splash decal. No splash decal. Do I? Yeah. I do have grenades. Yep, that is an incendiary grenade burning under the water. That is... Is that ladder supposed to be not connected to the pier? Are those ladders not really... I'm gonna go look at the other side of the pier just to see. Just because we're being a bitch today. Nah, it doesn't look like... Oh, wait, no, yeah, it does. Oh, it looks like those are lower where they should be. But they're actually, like, not connected to the wall. Oh, no, they're connected to the wall like they should be. It's still just that awkward... You could tell... It's little things like that. I came across this whenever I was creating the Star Wars scenario for Arma, where it's just like you would first place items to determine functionality. You know, you need a ladder here somewhere in order for the player to get up out of the water, obviously. So let's slap some ladders on. You don't go and adjust these things like here, the specific placing to where you match up the surfaces for like... That's last. That's way down the line as far as like a pass over the environment to like adjust the minute details like that to make sure there's no like floating objects or anything. This area just didn't get that pass. There are a mind-bending number of areas in the city that this was actually one of the smaller examples that I've seen. But there are a ridiculous amount of areas that have likewise not received that quality control pass, where it's just, okay, this is all functional. I can functionally use this area. Like, I can jump into the water, climb up this ladder and everything. And you might not even notice it. This is why quality control testing in video games is so important. Even as a dev... determining the functionality of this area, you might legit miss that these assets here aren't actually aligned in a way that looks good. You might actually not even notice it Like here, because you see, I promise you, I guarantee you what happened when, at least in this area, is the dev had a free-floating camera. They were up here at a higher angle while they were adjusting where these ladders were positioned on the model of the pier. They placed it, tried it as far as the functionality of it, and called it done and moved on to something else, and nobody came across this area to give it another pass to check about the alignment of these ladders because they were too busy being crunched by other things. I guarantee you that's what happened. And that is the story of Night City. It's beautiful when you look at it from far away and you're just reveling in the look when you're just really taking in the sights of it. But when you get down to the fucking nitty-gritty and you actually start really paying attention, you start noticing the little things that they had to skip in order to look at that. Look at the. Oh, it goes away whenever you zoom in. But oh yeah, there's that texture popping. These are the corners that they had to cut in order to push out this game for their greedy owners. Like there's no other way to say it. Okay, hacking. I am an epic Hacksaws legend. So let's do a contagion and just kind of see how that plays out. I fear not any of these fools. I fear not. So we're uploading contagion, still spreading around, doing a lot of damage. It's I think right now my only epic quick hack, so it does a lot of damage, but you can see kind of like, yes, it does damage, but with the simplicity of the hacking mechanic as is, that translates to a game that has a mechanic where when you level up and you put in 100 hours, well, for this character it's more like roughly 30 hours, 40 hours, to do like this game's version of late game hacking, because your hacking system is so rudimentary and so basic compared to what it was advertised as being. That's all you can end up doing. That's all they do. I do more damage. My contagion spreads, does more damage, kills people quicker. That does not equal more fun. Like, let's be real here. Like, I mean, I was efficient. I rolled up on that group of guys, and I killed them all immediately. But I mean, that's not really like, it wasn't fun in any, particular way. I didn't have to try at all to kill those people. And then there's this. This will actually give us a great opportunity to talk about something else.
Bitches on my ass!
Bitches on my ass! Because all these cops just spawned right up there. I was right here, and these cops spawned literally just a few feet away. Again, there is nothing about this that is a glitch in the sense that it is multiple game systems interacting with each other in unforeseen ways to produce hilarious results. No. This is a deliberate design decision. Or at least this glitch is rooted in a deliberate design decision. That design decision being, what do we do about cops? Oh my god, we have no idea, and they want to release this game in X amount of months. That's stupidly close. We don't know what we don't fucking know, but we'll do this. We'll just make them spawn in, because they have to have cops. It would be super weird if they had a city without cops, right? But that's the system that we get. Not a bugged system, a flawed system. A system that is flawed in a way that is, it is I keep saying deliberate, and that sounds like it's just a product of like bad decision making on the devs' part, but that's almost unfair as a framing, because it was forced on them. It was a corner that they had to cut. It was, all right, either you cut this corner or you fall off into lava. You know, like, even if the corner that you cut, even if the way that you cut the corner is ungraceful or whatever, it looks sloppy, or it's not what we wanted, or it's whatever. The fact that you didn't fall in the lava is the point. The fact that the game was ready and there was a cop system, or a crime system, just of any kind. That's the point. That's where they were with their design, their decision making, or I should say the logic of their decision making. So, like, right here, there are ways to do non-lethal hacking, but it all still boils down to the same thing, where you're doing just another type of damage. You have lethal damage and non-lethal damage. If you do a certain amount of lethal damage to specifically body parts, you'll actually down them instead of killing them, which is, you know, a mechanic that is pretty admirable. But whenever you get acquainted with high-level mechanics, it all boils down to you show up and you just completely Shrek everybody, because the AI is brain dead. Is completely brain dead, does not stand a chance of actually surviving once a player actually has literally any kind of advantage. Now they'll go cyber psycho. If there were any enemies to fight, they would actually just run around and fight them up until there is nothing to fight, and then they'll kill themselves. So it's like the suicide hack, except better. Amazing. Those are the moments. Those are the parts. Like, the most artistic portions of this game are the most successful. The music, the design aesthetics, those, like, stuff like that. Like, even the vending machines, man. Like, I just like looking at the vending machines. Like, the advertisements, the graffiti, you know, all of it is very well put together in a way that this game just is not. That nearly every other aspect of this game is not. It seriously needed another 3 years, 3 or 4 years in development in order to actually deliver on the not just iron out the bugs, but to deliver on the promises made. They should have they should have just memed on themselves and just owned it and been like, okay guys, we have been in development for 9 years and we are in year 8 right now, and we have a garbage fire of a game to show for it, so we're going to delay the game. Sorry, but we have to do it. I have to go now, but I will watch this. Please don't forget about 3 stations. Fusion of the picture and music is so deep. Man, I know, like, the music and the watching the city just in that static way is just it's so appealing. But yeah, like, yeah, specifically, what is that, Pacific, or no, what was it, what did you say it was again? It was Pacific Dreams. Yeah, Pacific Dreams. I'm about to wrap this up and go do that, just to wind down. Because, I mean, and there it is, another bit of texture popping. That van still hasn't loaded its textures. I mean, what else can you fucking say about this game? The main, I mean, aside from talking about all the just going into the list of missing features, which I don't really feel like doing, I mean, really the main point would be to stress that this game is lacking features not because, or rather, this game is not as good as it can be, not specifically because of the bugs, but because of the missing features, which is also related to the bugs. Hey, what up, Xanatos? So whenever you look at a game that has 9 years of dev time, but bugs that are fundamentally game-breaking, there's no other way to look at it other than just an early access game that was greedily pushed out. Like, I cannot stress enough that if you're one of those people that want to be angry about this, this is one of those projects where, yeah, you should probably be angry about this if you're going to be angry about anything. In video games, that is. But as with all situations where public backlash in gaming is something that is even a little bit warranted, do not go after the developers of this game. The rank and file devs of CD Projekt Red are not responsible for the shit show that this game is. We just went over who's responsible. What the fuck? Yeah, these guys. These guys are the ones that you need to be angry at. Don't be going on Twitter and just, giving death threats to every CD Projekt Red employee. Like, if you're going to be mad at anybody, be mad at the right people. Be mad at the people who took 9 years of the, like, this. Again, every time I try to stop and think about this, it really fucking makes me angry. Just because I'm putting myself into those shoes. I worked in the oil field for 10 years, and just trying to contextualize that career, like my entire oil field career, but applying it to one video game project. And then at the end of those 10 years, have all of it shit on by the greed and mismanagement of 6 people. There's so much reason to be upset, but be upset for the devs. Be upset for the people at CD Projekt Red who spent 9 years of their life only to be forced to shove this game out the door, and then to be subject to the ire of a public who is excited for something that they were lied to about, because they were genuinely lied to about in this scenario. You want to talk about the shittiest game devs that have existed in the last several decades. You want to talk about the worst projects: Anthem, Fallout 76, going back to the day of PlayStation 3 with like the Order. What was that one game? Order 1812 or whatever the fuck that game was. No Man's Sky, all these different games pale in comparison, in my personal opinion, to this fucking. It's not even my personal opinion. It's not like I'm saying that as if that's something that isn't obvious. Like, Sony has pulled it off the PlayStation Store, Microsoft is offering full refunds. It is a fucking disaster, and everybody knows it. But the reason why it's a disaster, I wish would be more obvious to the public, but it never will be, because the decision-making process being on the shoulders, specifically AC Unity. Yeah, fucking Assassin's Creed is really, really bad about a lot of that. But you see, that's what's fucking crazy. That's what's fucking crazy, is that technically we're in a situation where Ubisoft deserves an attaboy where CD Projekt Red doesn't. That's something that I did not fucking expect, man. That's something I did not. If you notice, Sanitos, I'm walking right now because I had to mod walking into this game because that's where we are in 2020. That's where we've been for a very long time with video games. That's one of the things that I already said. You know what? I'm about to get off anyway, so I'm just gonna punctuate this. I'm about to get political. If you don't want to hear this, just go do something else. But just before I leave, this is seriously like something that radicalizes me to the left so much as far as people owning the product of their labor. If the game devs had 9 years of their life to spend and some reassurance through, I don't know, a system of workers' rights facilitated by a federal government, say, and they had the ability to actually stand up and defend the product that they were actually creating, you're already seeing it. I've mentioned this already. You're seeing developers shit talk the CEOs because of this situation. That wouldn't have happened if we actually respected unions obviously I'm in America, they're in Poland, but it's still the same system of development. They follow the same model of development and funding game development in Poland as they do largely everywhere else. And the pressures of what type of stage or what the state of the product they release is also the same. They all have to deal with the same things in the game industry. And we've seen it for decades. These incentives make worse games. I am perfectly comfortable in saying that games are not worse technically. I think that's a little hyperbolic. But they are not getting better in a way that I'm pretty sure we all agree we didn't expect, you know? Like, it's kind of like the flying car mentality when people think about innovation in technology. Like, they'll think about these pretty high-minded things that kind of only exist in the realm of, like, futurism. Like, flying cars is specifically a pretty favorite part of that. Like, it's a pretty impractical thing, but if you're going to conceptualize a future world, chances are you need some air cars buzzing around because it's kind of like a zeitgeist thing. Everybody just kind of agrees that they should be there. I don't remember what my point was now. Zeitgeist, something or another. I guess my point was something about walk keys being an assumed part of video games. But wrapping it all up, innovation is something that comes from people who are passionate about the things that they make. Whatever it is. Like, Einstein did not make what he made and do what he did because he had some sort of profit motive to innovate on the things that he was interested in. That's really true of basically everybody who has anything to say about the things that they are working on. Like, anybody who really pushes any particular industry or medium that they're working on forward, chances are they didn't do it because of money, generally speaking. That's a component, always, just because we live in a world where, you know, if you don't want to starve, you kind of have to care about it. But as far as, like, the people that we all recognize as being quote-unquote innovators, we very rarely give that trait to them for the amount of money that they accumulate, you know? We gift that trait to developers and companies and individuals who have a vision for a product or have just a vision in general, be it something conceptual that nobody's thought of before or whatever, and they are able to deliver on that vision in a way that the public is able to not only digest in the moment but appreciate it in exactly the way that the person making the thing anticipated. Like, it's a much more complicated process of refinement of a product, because you don't, this thing just doesn't exist in nature. You have to make it. It's like taking oil out of the ground and expecting it to be fuel, you know? Like, you can't just take oil out of the ground and put it in your car and then it be fuel. You have to refine it. But even then, crude oil can be refined into just an ungodly amount of things. Hydrocarbons are very useful in that way. You fertilizers, rubber, plastics, all kinds of shit. But you have to go through that process in order to actually get the thing. You can't be halfway through the process of refining hydrocarbons in order to make some kind of polymer plastic thing, the highly specific polymer, and then halfway through it, your boss is like, hey, you know what? It would actually be great if we could actually speed this up so that we could have something to sell by Christmas. You know? Like, you're going to be looking at him with a pile of unrefined materials going, what the fuck are you actually talking about right now? If in a society that made sense, if I was expected to spend 10 years of my life doing a thing, I would have the rights with all of my other fellow employees to tell that CEO who just walked in and asked me to do that completely stupid thing, that completely absurd thing, that everybody who has even half fucking brain invested in, you know, what comes next knows that this is going to be a disaster. I guarantee you that every single dev working on that fucking project who every single day would wake up and work on, oh my god, Mantis blades, wall running, how the fuck do we fix this? Like, God knows how long they tried to fix that problem alone. And then by the time we're actually on a release schedule, they were just like, okay, we can't. I have to pull this feature. Like, those people dealing with those kinds of scenarios, they fucking knew. They knew. They absolutely knew what was going to happen. They knew December fucking 1st, all the way up to the what was it, the 9th or whatever the release date was, every day waking up with the dread that soon the whole world was going to fucking flip out on them, because they, like, there was no scenario where they weren't going to do that. It's just awful to think about, man. Like, I cannot imagine. I have had job stress before, but I have never had job stress on that level. Like, I have been, like, the most job stress I've ever had was to be an MWD technician on an oil rig, running telemetry tools and feeding telemetry data to a directional driller. Basically, like, navigational data for the person steering the ship. And having the weight of, like, there were several layers of accountability that separated me from, like, anything going, like, super wrong, but I was still definitely, like, I had worked myself up the ladder to be in a position where I did have a certain level of responsibility where I would be held accountable if I fucked up so hard that I hit a certain threshold. Thankfully I never did, but the stress related to that threshold always being there in the background. Like I mentioned earlier, whenever I go to work in the oil field, 12 hours a day, every single day, no days off. Going there every single day thinking, holy fuck, if I'm not paying attention, I could feed, like, the wrong telemetry data to my driller and we'll drill off in the wrong direction and everybody will hate me, or even worse, I'll, like, fuck up the actual drilling program and it'll, like, cost several days, which translates to several $1,000s of drilling fluid, because every day, you know, costs money to keep the operation going. 9 years of development, man. Like seriously, I can't say that enough. Like, the work stress related with showing up every day for 9 years, knowing you were making you were just polishing the same turd every single day. Like, how do you stay motivated to work like that? Fuck, man. Like, that's the type of stuff. That's why I will always advocate for workers' rights, for unions, for workers having as much control of their labor as possible. The workplace needs to be democratized. the individual deserves to be empowered in a way where even when they go to the workplace, they still have the right to determine what their life looks like day by day and hour by hour. Because there is no more precious resource on the earth than time to the individual. We each have a certain amount of it, and if we're going to be burning a fucking decade of it at a time on something, we should have way more say in what that something is and what the products of that something is and the consequences of that something. It should not be. It is a broken system fundamentally where 800 people's livelihoods and 800 plus people's lifetimes of work have been ruined by the greed of fucking 6 people after 9 years. 3 years of development time to make Skyrim. Fucking, like you could have made 3 Skyrims in the time it took to make this fucking game. That's crazy. Unless I'm less mad at Star Citizen. Yeah, like Star Citizen, I think, has come out looking way better as far as like comparing the two projects, or just any project with like a large, like obscenely large and bloated dev cycle. I mean, you look at, I mean, really the thing that breaks most of the goodwill here is the lying. I mean, CD Projekt Red, unfortunately, they lied about their intentions within the development in a way that fucking Star Citizen and that team just hasn't. They have been way more straightforward and way more open to criticism, and just like way more transparent as far as like, which is still like crazy to say because there's still some criticism to be had about all that with specifically Star Citizen. But it's nowhere near this level. There are ways to have a game that goes on a dev cycle that is just obscene and takes years and years and years and years and years and years and years. Like it makes sense that ambitious projects would take a long time. And I don't think anybody has a set, like, you can't just say what the most acceptable time frame for a game is with dev time. Like, it doesn't make sense to say that. Like, I really have no right as a customer to say it shouldn't take more than 3 years to make a game, And that's not what I'm saying with this. I'm not saying that, because Skyrim took 3 years, that this game should only have taken 3 years to make. The point is the expectations associated with that time. And those expectations are managed by the team. So if the team itself is not managing the expectations, and the audience is expecting something different from that 9 years of dev time, like if I'm sitting here going, ooh, 9 years of dev time, it must be good. They're saying all these different things, and it's been this long. I can be confident that this game will be playable when it's released. Like there's no guarantee now that for that moving forward with this game. But just oh god, I said I was getting ranty, and I said I was going to get off earlier, but then you shut up, Xanatos. You should take that arm flap and turn it into an alert and thus I'm less, at least, exactly, the reporting progress and all that kind of stuff. That's the transparency that I'm talking about. Like, you can take as long as you want, but as long as you're managing expectations in a way that's realistic and in a way that actually respects your players, that's not a big deal. You could take as much time as you fucking want, as long as you're transparent the whole way, and as long as you're actually managing your customer base's expectations in a realistic way. I don't think there's anybody who can reasonably give that much of a fuck about how long something takes. Or like, honestly, the executives, like that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, you have to ignore projections in that way. Like, that's literally the only way you arrive at that decision where it's okay to push the game out in the state that it is in. Like, you just have to ignore the people on your team who sadly have a record of knowing what they're doing, but for whatever reason you're just fucking not listening. For whatever reason. Not like capitalism or anything. Ugh. You know, whatever reason. We've been walking around now just aimlessly, and there's not been any of those like wild like cars popping into each other and exploding bugs or anything like that, because on PC the game is running at a level of stability where all of those background scripts and all of those governing sort of modules that dictate when or what spawns when, all of those things are functioning effectively because the game is not chugging or anything like that. Whenever you have a game, I will say it again, that has bugs that spawn, that come into existence as a product of modules and core systems being broken and not working systems being layered on each other and producing oddities. Like, that's the way it's supposed to work, okay? That's the way that games are supposed to be, like, acceptable bugs. Whenever a game is trying to be like, okay, is this something that I should put out? If your game has so many complex systems layered on top of each other, like let's just go Skyrim again, just because this is a very good example of something that would be more apt as far as gameplay loops and development decisions than what they did here. You have stuff like the player reputation system, the crime system, the stealth detection system, the passive detection system, even with how NPCs will notice the player and comment on the player. All these different things culminate in a way where you're able to feel like you're actually walking around in a city that is a city. The executive class is guilty of this kind of behavior across the entirety of capitalism, though it's not just a symptom of the game development. No, for sure. But it's very obvious here in game development. Like, and I don't know, that's probably just a product of me playing games since I was a baby and just having an interest in it. But, like, that's kind of... like, I mean, no other medium, because games ride that line between commodity and art in a way that when you mix the type of capitalism we have in with it, it produces some just all over the place results. Like, it is weird. The video game industry is weird because of just all of the market forces that are applied to it and how we as a society view video games. But like I was saying, it's one kind of bug to have all of these complex systems layered on top of each other, like Skyrim's reputation, crime system, etc., and all of those things being layered and then producing something like an NPC greeting you in a weird way from the other side of the building. Let's say that's a bug that I remember from Skyrim. That is a bug that is, in my eyes, acceptable, because it is something that, even with several developers dedicatedly testing the game for hundreds of hours, that is something that a player could play hundreds of hours and not see. And it would be something that didn't adversely affect the playthrough. It wouldn't break the game, fundamentally. But it is a bug, because that's not something that was intended by the developers. This game, the glitches, the worst glitches, come from a place where the core systems of the game are broken fundamentally. It would be like, the difference would be like if in Skyrim the crime system just broke while you were playing. It would be like if you were in, which did happen in Skyrim, by the way, modern Skyrim. I don't care, Regina. Like, modern Skyrim had a lot of that stuff fixed, where you don't see it as much, but, like, you know, early Skyrim, there was stuff like the stealth system just being, likewise, fundamentally broken in a way that was nearly game-breaking. And those are the bad bugs, you know? Those are the bad bugs, where a system in the game, you can narrow it down to almost like a hypothesis, like a scientific hypothesis, where you're just like, I believe that if I stand right here and walk this way, that the traffic system in this game will start despawning cars. Let's test that hypothesis. I don't really need to because I've already done it, but you see, these cars aren't despawning. We did see that car just pop into existence. And you see, that's it. Okay, there's a car that just disappeared. That car just disappeared behind this. And you see, I'm noticing now that last time I tried this, I was in a car, so that might be what's giving me different results. Point is, I'm reliably able to fuck with the spawn mechanics of the traffic system in this game at will, by where I look and where I move. I, as a player, am reliably able to predict things because of how fucked a lot of these systems are. I have only been playing this game for 166 hours as a single person. If you restart this stream, in the first 30 minutes, I experienced 2 separate bugs. That level of broken is unacceptable by every single metric, and frankly, Sony is the good guy here for doing what they did, and CD Projekt Red absolutely deserved to get their fucking ass eaten by everybody right now, because, like, and not in a good way. Just, they need it just explained to them. These CEOs need they just need to be sat down and explained that they stupid and they dumb in the head. I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about anymore. Like, really, I'm just kind of wandering around looking for things to talk about at this point. Like, your face is not spawning in. There's your face. Like, see, little things like that, where it's just like, why is the radius of the level of detail so low? And then that thing popped in. Like, okay, I'm just repeating myself. I've seen that where there's a line of cars off in the distance. Yeah, like, I see that whenever I'm in a car all the time. Like, it's just one of those fucking things. But in short, for whoever sees this, do not be angry at the devs. Be angry at these people. These are the people to be angry about. Angry at, I mean. Because they suck. Because they shit on 10 years of hard work from 800 people that were dedicated to this project in a way that these idiots just could not be bothered to be. That being said, I am now going to put on one more time. Make sure I know it was Pacific Dreams. Yeah, Pacific Dreams. I'm going to stream that for a little while just to get it recorded for myself and for all of you later. And like, modding is really the only thing that I'm looking forward to at this point in order to fix this game in the short term and add in hopefully some cool stuff to actually increase the longevity of the game. That right there is another great example. I will stress that one more time before getting out of here. You could see on the channel there's some Arma 3 stuff, a lot of modded Arma 3 stuff. Modders are another example of how the gaming industry treats the commodification of video games and the relationship between labor and creating a commodity for a market. Because modding is something that basically in every single avenue makes games better. Like, you don't have to partake in it, but if you're going to, and you can actually figure out how to do it, and you can actually put in the time to do it, it's just generally, in pretty much all aspects, something that can make your game better. For you, the individual, which is kind of the whole point. Like, that's why it's able to do that, is because you, the individual, have the option to tune the game to your, the whole reason you're able to do that in the first place is because there are people out there with a passion for a project that had no other incentive to create something than their passion. That's all they wanted to do. That's all that drove them. There was no market force. There was no profit motive that drove them on innovating on a product, because that's what this is. Like I was saying, that video games are very unique in the sense that they straddle the line between art and commodity in a way that even music doesn't really do anymore. Oh, there it goes again. Yeah, no, I need to get off. I'm losing my thought. I'm losing my train of thought too often. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. The amount of labor that goes into creating a mod for free is identical to the amount of labor that goes into creating any game, any aspect of any game. Major game projects are basically like a conglomerate of several smaller modding projects, where it's one team doing one aspect of the game, this team doing this aspect of the game, and they all collaborate in order to make a project happen. Modders are doing that for free, and they are one of my favorite things about PC gaming, and for that reason, I will always love them, and just, they are proof to me that this industry can be more artistically driven than it is, and it does not need a profit motive in order to actually deliver innovative and gripping products. Because fucking profit motive sure ain't doing it now. Look at this piece of shit. Come on. This is really what we get after 8 years. 9 years. 10 years, I'm going to call it, puppy. 100 years we waited for this day, puppy dog. God damn it. I'm going to go listen to some chill tunes and weep and watch, and I'm gonna go watch the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian again, because it's nice to see products created by people who are passionate about what they're making, free of other incentives, at least free of other incentives in a way where it's not the only reason they're making a thing. You want to talk about another fucking thing that should be obvious as far as where the profit motive kind of destroys innovation, specifically in art. Star Wars. But yeah. Thank you for listening to this rant. It was fun. I had coffee, and that was basically the only reason this happened.